Well, hello and welcome to Association Transformation. I'm Elisa Pratt with Brewer Pratt Solutions. Andrew Chamberlain, how are you? Elevated Solutions. Wait, what is your new business name?
It's not Elevated Solutions. It's not been called Elevated Solutions ever. Elevated.
Ever? What is this new amazing company?
Elevated, and it's not that new. We launched it months and months and months ago. My God.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Sorry.
right.
Well, I'm just getting up on it.
Actually, I'm jet lagged because I only got back from Minnesota day before yesterday, and I'm flying to Columbus tomorrow in Ohio. So I am exhausted. I'm absolutely exhausted. I am desperate for a holiday, but I'm good otherwise. I'm good. How are you?
You're traveling, you're all these, I don't know if I'd complain too much about all your gallivanting around the world.
Yeah, but I don't know. Apologies to our friends in Minnesota and Ohio, but it's Minnesota. It's Minnesota.
The UK takeover. All right, no, let's get serious. We have a real topic. I know that you and I have both agreed on one of the major trends we've seen in 2022, and that is the change in the workplace and the workspace and what the environment of productivity has evolved into. Not necessarily all intentionally, I think somewhat accidentally through our last couple years navigating a global pandemic, but this has not been something that the association community has been able to avoid, nor do I think they've turned away from the opportunity to explore its potential. So as we do with association transformation, we bring these conversations, we push the envelope, and we bring only the most exciting guests on the newest and innovative topics. So who did you bring for us today, Andrew?
Well, this week I'm hugely excited because we've got Mark Downs, who is the Chief Executive of the Royal Society of Biology. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hi, great to be here, Andrew. Nice to see you and Lisa as well.
I love that we've got somebody royal on. You know, for our friends.
Oh yes, that's true.
Got royalty is stamped with a royal approval. I'm so excited to have Mark join us this week because, as you said, it's interesting. You said we've had a lot of sort of turbulence, a lot of what's the word, uncertainty around the way we work, the manner in which we work as professionals has been often up
disruption,
in the
disruption, if you will.
That was the word, up in the air. But actually, I'm going to go back pre-pandemic. I actually think there's been some intentional disruption going on in the workplace for quite a number of years now, and particularly, and the reason we've invited Mark on today is to talk about the 4-day week. I'm not going to call it phenomenon because actually I think it's much bigger than that now. It's a movement. It's a movement, and I'm very, very excited about the movement. It started
you've been advocating for the 1-day work week for a while now, and I've pushed back.
I have, and now I'm pushing back for the 1-day work month. 100 years ago, we moved from a 6-day week to a 5-day week. And we've kind of stuck to it. We stuck to it through thick and thin over the tumultuous 20th century. But as we've kind of come into the 21st century, as we approach the quarter mark of the 21st century, the manner in which we work, which as you rightly say was accelerated during COVID and accentuated during the pandemic, but the manner in which we work, the manner in which technology allows us to engage one another, work together at a local, national, international manner, really has led to some, as I say, some dramatic, intentional changes to how we approach our work in weeks. And over the last few years, in fact, since 2017, the 4-day week global movement has been driving the ambition for, just that, a 4-day week. And actually, I'm delighted that Mark and his team at the Royal Society of Biology are one of the, in fact, I think, Mark, I'm right in saying you're the only membership body that's
we are, I think that's right. Yes, we are. Yeah.
Participating rather in a trial in the UK so that we better understand how the 4-day week is manifesting and what the benefits or challenges or otherwise are. So it's great, Mark, that we've got you on board, and I guess I'm just going to get straight into it. Why'd you do it? Why did you do it?
Sometimes after myself that question, why did we do it? But no, I think there's some really good reasons, actually. I mean, we are a relatively small organisation. We've got about 40 staff. The membership sector is really diverse, really, really broad. We want to make sure we offer a good working environment for everyone who's here. We want to retain people. We want to attract good people. All those sort of things that an employer, wants to be able to do. And one of the ways that we can do that is by having a different approach to the way we work. We are a charity. We have a salary structure which is reasonable. But we can't necessarily compete with big corporates. You wouldn't expect us to be able to do that. But we have a really important national role to play. So we do need to have good people. And I think one of the ways you can attract and retain people is by having, a much more flexible working structure and a balance with what they do compared to the home life, all that sort of stuff. And of course, flexible work has been around for a long time, but a 4-day week is a sort of step beyond that, but within that broad flexible work structure. So I suppose that's a really long answer to say that we think it's going to make it a better place to work and help us attract and retain staff.
Fantastic, excellent. Well, at least
I know that this movement is global, obviously, and I'm interested in its impact on competitiveness. You mentioned being a nonprofit. Maybe we don't pay the most. Maybe we aren't as competitive as the high tech sector or others. And how do we bring the best talent to the table and keep them? And you guys have been in this game for many years now. We see this struggle to retain the best and bring the best to us, maybe more so now than ever before with the Great Resignation, the Great Recession, and I think the struggle between in-person and work from home environments. When you guys were in the midst of COVID, what happened to your 4-day work week? I'm assuming you had to pivot within even your pilot program. How did that go through the COVID process with work from home?
Well, we were, I suppose, fortunate in terms of timing in one sense, because the flexible working we had beforehand, pre-COVID, did not include the 4-day week. So we've picked up the 4-day week as part of this national pilot, which started for us on the 6th of June this year. So it's relatively recent for us, and we're running until the end of the calendar year to see how it goes and then make a decision on whether we're going to make it permanent or not. So we've done it on the back of what's happened with the pandemic, but I think that the pandemic was part of the backdrop which made us think, as I'm sure it did absolutely everybody else, think very differently about how you work and how you operate as a business and as a charity. And we have lots of home working, and we still do. We have lots of very flexible working. We've always had that. And now we have the 4-day week on top of it. But I think it was the fact that, there was a big resignation, as you say. It was becoming increasingly more difficult to get people. We wanted to be in the vanguard as an employer. And so the timing just worked out really well for us. I mean, we could have done it at any point, but I think a combination of things and the fact it was a pilot where we could learn from others has really helped us make that big step, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you mentioned learning from others. We hope to bring people and topics together for our audience that others can then be inspired by and take and run with. To get into some specifics that may help our audience, both UK and around the world, know if this is something that's right for their teams, their nonprofit organizations. Give me an understanding of your staff, the size, how many are hourly, how many are salary, and how many hours is a full-time week for you?
Sure. Okay. So we are growing a little bit at the moment. We have about 36, 37 staff, of which they're all salaried. So we don't have any 0-hour contracts, anything like that. And we, within that, probably have, let me see, about 4 who are part-time. So in terms of actual people, 36, 37, and 32, 33 are in full-time salaried roles. And that's been the case for a while. As I said, we're growing slightly, but we've we haven't changed hugely, I suppose, over the last 1 or 2 years.
So, in the United States, a full-time week is traditionally 40 hours. In some cases, it's 37 and a half or somewhere within there. And I know even in government sectors, there has been the concept of the 4-day work week, but you're simply taking your 40 hours and you're dividing it over 4 days instead of 5 days. So you're not doing less, you're just doing it in a more concentrated period of time. How does the 4-day work week, what does it look like for you? Is it the same amount of time over a smaller period, or is it structured differently?
So it's not really compressed hours. It's slightly compressed. We had a 35-hour working week, so 5 7-hour days, plus lunch break in addition to that. But 35-hour working week, and the 4-day week pilot is 32 hours. So effectively, it's 4 8-hour days. So the day's been extended slightly, but not hugely, and the salary has stayed the same. So that's slightly different to the way some people have done it. And I think the other thing that's important to just mention is that it's a 5-day operation for us. So we don't close on Monday. We're still open 5 days a week as a membership organisation. And the ways in which the 4-day week operates is devolved down to teams to manage their time. So some people will have Monday as their non-work day, and some people will have Friday. But we're open for the 5-day period. So it's a little bit compressed, but not totally.
So you're bookending it, are you, with Mondays and Fridays? If I was, could I not? I'm not allowed to have a Wednesday off.
We do have, because it's a pilot, we are trying different things, and we do have one member of staff who's not working on a Thursday.
Right. Okay.
But most people are on the Friday, Monday, and we could be more flexible. It's not that we want to be particularly restrictive, but that tends to have been the way it's worked out. The focus has been for teams to make sure they can deliver for all their stakeholders on a 5-day week basis.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you are working in the office today. What has this come to look like with in-office, at home? I mean, you obviously trust your staff. They're delivering, they're salaried, they're getting their work done. So how does this look in real life when people are working remotely?
So, I mean, I think being able to disaggregate the benefit of home working versus a 4-day week versus other types of flexible working is quite difficult. And most of the staff here are only in occasionally. So we can accommodate, over 40 people in terms of individual desks. But as a result of COVID, I suspect on most days we don't have more than 5 or 6 people physically in the office.
Wow. Okay.
Most people are working at home, probably 80% of their time. And that means that what you tend to see is people, starting work at 8 or 8:30 in the mornings, and are finishing around 5 to 6 o'clock time, depending on their particular requirements. So it's worked. It's worked quite well in terms of flexibility, but it is sometimes a little bit difficult to separate out the two, if I'm honest.
When you mentioned the coverage of days, and I think about the transference of this pilot to an association that's representing a multitude of time zones, and how you would ensure coverage within a total day. Do you have policies around start times and end times, or phone coverage, or what customer service type facing efforts throughout the individual day?
A little bit, but our international engagement is quite modest. So about 10% of our membership is outside the UK, but typically we don't have hundreds and hundreds of members phoning us up every day. We've got about 17,000 members, so you get dozens of calls, and we advertise as sort of being open between the hours of 9 and 5 in the UK. And core hours for staff are 10 until 4. And again, we just make sure that teams devolve it. So we have hunt groups on telephones, as many people do, so that when a call comes in, it doesn't have to go to an individual, it goes to a team. And, somebody on that team can pick up the call and log it. So that seems to work quite well, actually.
So
go ahead, Andrew.
No, go on. No, it's okay. You can finish off your.
Well, as we mentioned phones, and gosh, that sounds so old-fashioned in itself. And I wonder if preparing your organization to either take on or evaluate the opportunity of a 4-day work week, if it might then accelerate your adoption of some digital innovations and help prep your organization to be ready for really 24/7 service through your digital platforms. How much more efficient can we be, not only to allow our staff to go to 4 days, but just to simply serve our members better in an on-call, on-demand environment, which is, of course, the internet. Did you undertake any technology evaluations or invest in any new digital service or access in preparation for this?
We haven't invested in new digital services specifically for the 4-day week. However, over the last 2 to 3 years, we've grown our digital capability quite a lot. We have our own bespoke systems here which operate everything actually, from our HR systems through to grant giving processes through to membership applications and so on, or policy work. So it's something that we've tried to do for a few years now, and we're entirely cloud-based, which has been a godsend in terms of our ability to work remotely from home or wherever. Although I talk about telephone calls, there are very few of those. Of course, most of them are coming in as email or some other form of engagement, which again goes into a collective, box or group, which are dealt with by staff within that team.
I think it's really interesting, Lisa, I think it's really interesting that we're talking about a 4-day week and therefore less time in the office. And isn't this straight? It sounds accusatory. I apologize. It's not, but I'm curious as to why do we really think that we need to be providing 24/7 support to our members? Do you think that
maybe not 24/7, but there are a lot of easy questions that if we give our information, give the opportunity to the members to go pull information and be self-sufficient in the digital environment.
Yeah.
We can teach them to fish. We can give them value 24/7 versus them having to wait to talk to someone.
Right. Okay. So you're talking digital 24/7. Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought there was an
No. I don't mean real person call center type situations,
okay.
But I think we also know that in the nonprofit association world, there's also those times of year, whether it's around annual meeting, whether it's around awards and scholarships and grants, I consider the nonprofit profession somewhat manic depressive. There are crazy times and there are slow times. And I wonder what happens to this 4-day-a-week infrastructure when it is annual meeting or when it is convention. Do you have to suspend this pilot during certain times?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, actually. And the way we've approached it is to say that it's non-contractual. So the 4-day week is not contracted. And if we continue it, which there's a good chance we will do, it will remain non-contracted. So you're employed for 5 days a week.
Okay.
And what we are saying as an employer is, in the same way you work core hours or you can take time off to go and collect the kids from school in the middle of the afternoon, you can work a 4-day, 32-hour week where it's possible to do so within the confines of your role. And we will try to endeavour to make sure that is most of the time you're able to do that. But you as an individual, as a team, may need to make decisions on some occasions that you come in on that non-work day, what would normally be the non-work day. And in fact, we have something called Biology Week, which is a week-long campaign. It's in the first week of October, when there's loads of things going on. And inevitably, the events team were working there 5 days that week.
Sure.
But the rest of the year they haven't been. So the answer is yes, we do have to have some flexibility around it, and I think making it non-contractual is the best way to do that. So if you don't take your non-work day because of work demands for some reason, you don't accrue it. There's no toil involved in the process.
You mentioned that this was this new to you this year, and that you will be evaluating at the end of the year. And I wonder, what will your measures of success be to determine if this is something you want to continue? What are your metrics? Is this something about the management wanting to go crazy, trying to keep track of this? Is this about numeric levels of efficiency or membership renewal rates? How are you really going to measure the success of this program?
Well, I guess, as you well know, trying to measure productivity in an organization like ours is pretty tricky. The only thing we can really do is have surrogates, and we've just been through a process of having a midterm review, and we had a questionnaire that went out to all staff, and we sent a questionnaire. We engaged with our stakeholders, with our member organizations, with our committees, with policy people who deal with us, to ask what their perception has been. So there's the hard and fast metrics like sickness levels, and the way in which people take annual leave, and meeting agreed KPIs, all those sorts of things we can look at. And so far, sickness is lower than normal, and which is a fantastic place to be. The response from the staff survey has been, tremendously positive. It really has been. And the response from our external stakeholders has been, we haven't noticed. So, I think, when you get that sort of feedback, you can say, okay, well, as far as we can judge, it's not impinging on our ability to do our day job. Membership applications are the same. And going back to your digital platform issue, if you want to apply as a member, you can do it 24/7 because it's all online, and you don't need somebody involved in that part of the process. So,
well, and maybe the ultimate measure is staff retention.
And staff retention is excellent. Over the last year, it's 11% turnover, which I think for the sector is good.
Mm-hmm. But when it came to signing up for the pilot, to my mind, it's an obvious opportunity, and you guys have embraced it. But I can imagine that we're asking people to, or we're advocating the 100-80-100 model. 100% of pay, 80% of the time, 100% productivity. How I can imagine a scenario where we propose this to the board of directors or the board of trustees and say, so we're gonna keep our financials are staying the same, but our time in the work environment is dropping by 20%. I can imagine what some reactions in the boardroom were. So what business case did you make to the board to say, look, we need to do this. This is a good thing. We should get on board. Without wanting to detract from, we know that the 4-day pilots over the last 3 or 4 5 years have produced good results in terms of employee well-being and happiness, and we know that 78% of employees are happier and less stressed than those who work in their 5-day weeks. But was that enough to convince the board that we should do this pilot, or did you have to prepare a more comprehensive business analysis for them to sort of to endorse it?
Well, I think, we are a society which is led in large part by the academic community. A lot of our board members are academics. And I think academics, more than anyone, are driven by evidence. And I think if you say to somebody, this is an experiment, these are the risks, this is how we want to mitigate the risks, these are how we're going to measure what success might look like. And it's a pilot, so we will look at the evidence and at the end of the day decide whether we want to continue or not. I think the argument and the discussion is easier. I think if you go to your board and say, we should do this, lots of external organizations have done it, and therefore we should just do it, and it's going to be contractual. That's quite a difficult discussion to have. But if you do it as a pilot, it's non-contractual, and you monitor what's happening, I think the argument's a lot more straightforward. So, obviously people do challenge. Of course they do, and you'd expect that.
Mm-hmm. But why do you think, you are the only membership organization in the UK that's participated. Why do you think that is? Why? I was pleased for you, but I was surprised that I could, when I was researching this, that I could only find one membership organization.
Yes, I don't know. I guess you'd have to ask 4-day week global what the reasons for that might be. But we really, if I'm honest, became part of the pilot through serendipity, because I wasn't sitting here thinking, we must have a 4-day week. I was reading some material and I came across it, and then I realized it was a pilot that was going to be starting, and I thought, actually, this is something we ought to think about. So we came in via that route. And there are only, 73 organisations involved in the pilot at this stage. So, you wouldn't expect proportionally in the sector there to be many membership organisations around the pilot. So I hope what we can show is that there's benefit in doing it, and that other membership organisations can perhaps learn from that and consider whether it's right for them too.
Yeah.
One last logistics question. You mentioned you only had 11% turnover, which I think for this sector is really amazing. Is this something for those new staff that is probationary? Do they not get access to this benefit until they've hit a certain anniversary, or is this day one, your 4 days a week? Go.
No, so for new staff that have started during the course of the pilot, which there's probably been about half a dozen because we've grown, they were not eligible to participate until they completed 3 months probation.
Okay.
So yeah, you come in and do that, and then we see how it goes. Because I think you do need a bit of time to get to know people well, and they need to get to know the organisation well, and before you can start to have that greater flexibility.
And all these elements of it, how to do it, the language to use, these procedural elements related to it, were they provided to you as in a pilot toolkit, or did you kind of just make them up as you went?
So there was some very useful information provided from the experience of others around the world, pilots in New Zealand and Canada and so on. And that was a really useful starting point. And then we've had a number of workshops. So in the run-up to the launch, we had quite a few workshops with other members in the pilot facilitated by 4 Day Week Global. And that was very, very useful. But what's become apparent is that there isn't sort of, I think, a set of rules that you can just apply to everybody. You have to find your own way a little bit, and you have to have the flexibility that suits your circumstances. I mean, some people in the pilot are closed on 1 day a week. And some people have there's one manufacturing business, I think, manufacturing 7 days a week that does a 4 day week on a rota type system. So you clearly have to have very different arrangements. But there are some challenges in that. For example, bank holidays, how you handle those. And we've taken the decision that if a bank holiday falls in the week, that is the week that everyone has to take as their non-working day.
Oh, wow. Okay, good.
That's one way of dealing with it. You still have the same amount of leave under our system because technically you're working 5 days a week. For organisations who have gone down a contracted 4 day a week, then they will have a 20% reduction in annual leave, most likely.
Well, it's really about clarity and consistency, right? I mean, it's about making that decision and communicating it and being consistent. So
yeah, because that bank holiday headache is always a headache with part-time members of staff. It's always
right.
I don't work on Monday. I never get the bank holiday. It's always a headache, regardless. Right. So I think if you apply the rule universally,
it does.
Then it shouldn't cause you any problems.
Well, Mark, I'm sorry I've taken all your time. I'm sure Andrew has lots more questions, but this is fascinating to me. And I too am shocked that more organizations, especially post-COVID, haven't institutionalized opportunities like this. This is an easy way to demonstrate a commitment to mental health, a commitment to flexibility, and 4dayweek.com. It's the number 4dayweek.com. I mean, they make it so easy. And there is already a community of organizations and companies like yourself who have, taken the first step.
There is. And I think sometimes, you just need a motivation to do things differently. And where you look at the productivity gains that we think we're making, or at least matching where we were before, it's mainly through a different approach to work. And we could have done that before, you might argue, but I think that the program itself and this pilot has incentivized everyone to rethink the way they do things. And typically, why do we always have to have meetings which are 60 minutes or 30 minutes or 120 minutes? Why can't they be 40 minutes? And why do we really need to have 3 people at a meeting when actually probably we only need 1? Those sorts of things are very simple and very obvious, but they have forced people to do things differently. And I think that you're also motivated to get things done. I mean, on a Friday afternoon, if you've got something to do, I'm sure we're all the same. You sort of say, well, actually, I might I'll just leave it till Monday. But actually, if you've got Friday as your day off, I think somehow psychologically there's an intent to say, no, I'll get that done now. I'm just going to do that. And I think everyone has found that. And the other interesting issue which has arisen as a result of the pilot, which we didn't really foresee in any way, was the benefit of the day you work when other people aren't. So what's happened is that, like for myself, I'm not working. I'm trying to not work on a Friday. So when I'm working on a Monday, a portion of the staff aren't working on a Monday, so I can't have meetings with those people, and they're not involved in things. So actually, my ability to do work like writing documents, reading stuff, whatever it might be, is much higher on that day than it would have been in a 5-day week, because it would have been interspersed with internal activity, and the internal activity decreases. So you end up with better use of time over a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You have one day where you're doing more stuff for yourself, and one day actually where you're able to focus a lot more on the office-based activity. And that's been, I think, really beneficial.
So staff are encouraged to leave their colleagues alone on those days. Don't email them. Don't expect an email. Know what their structure is and respect that separation.
That's right. I mean, clearly, like anything else, whether you're on annual leave or it's the weekend and so on, you're not working, if there's something really important, people will respond to it. Of course they will. And that's part of the quid pro quo that we have. We think it's a good deal for everyone. The staff believe it's a good deal for them. And I think they all understand that in order to make it work, there has to be that sort of trust, and there has to be a bit of flexibility around it. What we want to try to ensure is that it doesn't become abused in a way such that we end up expecting people to do lots of stuff on the day when they are trying not to have a work day, and it's treated a bit like it would be if it was contractual, but has to be an understanding that there's some flexibility around it. And in terms of coming back to your question about the sector and what's going on, we are a membership organisation of individual members, but we also have about 90 member organisations, of which about 50 or so are other charities in the bioscience sector who we represent on key generic issues. And a number of those are already talking to you saying, we're really interested in what's going on, because if this works for you, we want to find out what you got wrong so we don't do it. And then we might do it as well. And I think you can expect to see quite a number of member organisations, certainly in our section, the biosciences sector, picking up the 4-day week, if at the end of this calendar year we conclude it's been worthwhile. And I think based on where we are at the moment, that seems quite likely. And
I think that's critical. I think that goes back to the point we talk a lot about the role of the membership body, being able to wield an influence on its members, and being able to, and so if the society can be held up as a beacon of good practice, of innovative practice in and of itself as a business, then I think that is, I would argue, that's simply adding more value to the members' experience of the society. I think it's fantastic. And I think, for colleagues who are listening in Europe and South Africa, they are currently 4-day week global is currently recruiting now for its pilots in continental Europe and South Africa. My understanding is that actually they have a rolling program of pilots every quarter. So the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Europe, it's all kicking off regularly. So there's plenty of opportunity. And so I know you've already mentioned it, Lise, but yeah, I mean, if listeners want to go to 4dayweek.com, the digit 4dayweek.com, I think that's, I would encourage as many organizations as possible, because I think, and I'm really excited about what you described there, Mark, almost as the kind of, we talk constantly about the pace. Everything's the pace. Technology sped everything up. Oh my God, we could. But actually, what you've described is counter to that. Is actually arguably not in a bad way, but it's just slowing things down and giving us a bit of space rather than the constant pace. And I love that. And I think that in itself is a piece of such important learning there for businesses everywhere, not just membership organizations across the board. I love it. And I mean, as an advocate of the 1-day week, I the more space I can have, the less pace, the better. I don't know about you, Lise.
No, that is not yet a pilot program. Back to work, Andrew. Back to work. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to hear how your year-end evaluation goes and check in with you in another year or two to see how this has evolved. You know, for me, and the greatest takeaway I believe for the association space is the investment in the person, the human investment, the human-centric commitment to well-being and to balance, but also on the flip side of that, the forced discussion around productivity. Where else can this evolve? How else can this change? What else can we do better to both serve our members and to serve ourselves? So this is really exciting. We will put the link to the source information in our show notes. And again, thank you so much for joining us on Association Transformation. We look forward to having more conversations about this and seeing what else is coming forth. I mean, 2023 is right around the corner. You know, if this is now kind of a set thing, you know, what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's been great. A lot of fun. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Andrew, for joining us. We invite everyone to check out Association Transformation wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Spotify. We were on Google Podcasts. We're on Apple iTunes. We are on YouTube. Make us one of your favorites. And if you have an idea or an innovation or a pilot you'd love to share with the nonprofit community, welcome to visit us at associationtransformation.org. Until next time, Andrew and I thank you for your time, and we encourage you to put your members and your mission first.